You're listening to the Prospect Blueprint, exclusively on twoadays.com, the #1 source for college coach reviews and ratings, as well as recruiting tips and resources for college athletes. Have a coach you'd like to leave a review for or research before you make an expensive decision? Only at twoadays.com. Hello and welcome to the Prospect Blueprint. This webcast is for prospects, coaches, and those who support those prospects so they best understand what it takes to get from one level to the other, whatever that level might be. I'm Kelly Kleiman, and my battery mate is Mr. Rick Dempsey, 24-year MLB vet and fan favorite with the Twins, Yankees, Orioles, Brewers, Cleveland Indians, and Dodgers, and the 1983 World Series MVP for the Baltimore Orioles. Hi, Rick.
How you doing, Cal? Looking forward to this interview today.
I'm going to get through this intro one way or another. Folks, this is take 3, just so you know. Too much information. Today's guest, and I'm proud to announce, is Mr. Chad Konishi, the head coach of the all-new Chaminade University Swordsmen, a D2 baseball program that is being revamped since it was put in suspended animation back in '81 when one Rick Dempsey was in the midst of his Oriole career. Konishi has extensive experience in collegiate baseball, serving as associate head coach at the University of Hawaii, Manoa from 2002 to 2013. But I know that you just mentioned San Francisco, the University of San Francisco. We'll get to that in a second. But you were the pitching coach over there at the University of Hawaii during your 12-year stint. And I think in that stint, you reached two NCAA regionals. That would have been 2006, 2010, with a Western Athletic title in 2011. Congrats on that. While posting a 40-win season, which is very rare, and 8 30-win campaigns. Obviously, Chaminade picked the right guy. His pitching stats were consistently near the top of the WAC pitching statistics, including posting the conference's lowest ERAs in 2006 at 3.79 and 3.97 in 2007. While at the University of Hawaii, he helped coach 3 All-Americans in Colton Wong, who we're all familiar with, Lenny Linsky and Stephen Wright, 5 All-District honorees, 52 players who were named either first or second All-WAC, and 45 who were drafted by Major League Baseballs. Coach Konishi is anything but WAC. Coach, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, gentlemen.
Woo, I need oxygen. Rick, take over.
Yeah. I tell you, Chad, I want to welcome you to our show, man. Ever since Kel has brought me on, we have not had an unexciting interview yet. I'll tell you, I love interviewing the college coaches and people who are down there in the dirt with the players, because you guys have some passion that I had back in the game playing. You don't see it at the major league level. You don't see it anywhere else except in college coaching. And I just want to know from you, okay, let's go back here and find out how this program really began and how you ended up being selected as the guy, to put them back on the diamond again. And it's exciting, and I know for you, but you got to take a little pat on the back for getting all of this accomplished.
Well, it all started prior to me being the head coach here at Chaminade. I was the athletic director at St. Louis School, which is a shared campus with Chaminade. We are both overseen or directed by the Maronist Catholicism of Hawaii mothership in St. Louis. So St. Louis started first. Like I said, I was the AD there for 3.5 years. So all of the athletic facilities that Chaminade uses is leased by Chaminade. So I've been directly working with the new AD, Dr. Tom Bunning, and he kind of brought it up and asked, hey, we're working with Title IX. What would be a good sport here for Chaminade to start? And we were kind of dabbling into a few things, and I told him my background, and I said, this is a baseball state. I said, a baseball team here at Chaminade would be fantastic. And because we have 70% women on campus, 30% men, it made sense. So they went all out. They are ecstatic, excited to have started the baseball program. And the other sport that's coming in with us at Chaminade is women's beach volleyball. So we already having an indoor team, not having to necessarily really recruit more kids, but encouraging the indoor kids to do beach volleyball with their coach makes a whole lot of sense. And now as for a male sport, they wanted a big roster. So therefore, that's why they did baseball. Baseball was once in the scheme of things 40 years ago. They tried it for a year. They put it into a club level the second year, and then they decided to disband. So that is part of the reason why. And it makes sense too. Like I said, it's a baseball state. Our fellow D2 campuses here in state, HPU and Hilo, already have baseball. It just made sense that we just come along, join, and we're bringing in Westmont College, who would be the other team to join in the Pac West in pairs in coming in the 2024 season.
You know, Coach, selecting players has got to be a big challenge for you, because you just mentioned it too. They want you to bring in a lot of players, you know. Do you face a lot of challenges when you're recruiting players to Hawaii to that D2 level?
Oh, most definitely. Totally different than where I have come from in my college coaching past at USF and at University of Hawaii Manoa. I would say it's a little bit more or even less than what my budget allowed me at University of San Francisco. UH Manoa, we had a really good budget and we could go out and see as many players as we needed to. I've not recruited like I have here since the end of September, mostly by video, through Twitter, through Instagram, really relying on my past connections of club coaches, junior college coaches, players that have played for me. I have not dabbled into the portal. That's something that I am trying to at least avoid at this time, if at all possible. But I was able to finish my last day at St. Louis and hopped on a plane and moved right into the Senior Fall Classic in Arizona. And then the following week, I did the JUCO All-Star Games in Sacramento and at Saddleback in Orange County. And then later, I went up to see a few community colleges that were really good to us at UH Manoa and at University of San Francisco that I built relationships with in the Northwest. Some powerful community college up there. So I did make 3 trips in a matter of a month's time. So I have been able to go out and see some players, and been recruiting ever since and continue to recruit. And I've hit a monumental number for me, and I continue to keep going as what my admin would like, but more so what I would like. I've hit 30 players as of yesterday, committed to come to be a Silver Sword here. So pretty happy. I don't know if I would have thought at this point in time I would have hit 30 players. It is totally different. D2, even though the appeal of Hawaii, we have our hurdles. But I also think this is an exciting time for any young prospect or student athlete, because I don't have any incumbent players. Every kid that I recruit is going to get a chance to win a spot based on our evaluations here in the fall and in January when we return from Christmas break.
Well, many of the kids that you're going to be recruiting are all mainlanders. You mentioned quite a few from California, and certainly NorCal has a lot of good players. I'd love to find out who some of the kids you are talking to, but we won't go there. I promised I wouldn't. But will you also be reaching out to your left and recruiting heavily from Japan? Great players there, and frankly, a great game is played.
Yeah, I can't name individually kids, but yes, in my currently my 30, there is international students from Japan. I can tell you that I am engaging in conversation with another Japanese player somewhere out there in the 48 contiguous states that I like. I also have another Japanese player who is coming from the central part of the United States that has ties back home to Japan. So I like the Japanese players. I like their style. I like their discipline. I like what they bring to the table. I like their hard work. They're diligent. They're kind of bring that dirt bag, attitude and how they practice and how they grind. I just think that those players are the type of players that we're going to need here at the D2 level.
One minor aspect of the Japanese game that I love is that in between innings, the team puts on the catcher's uniform. I should say their equipment. So if the catcher's on deck or he just hit or whatever, he doesn't have to sit there and scramble to put it on himself. His teammates surround him and put on the equipment. It's a better team effort, I think, and attitude in Japan by far than what's going on here in the United States. How do you arrange for housing for a lot of these kids? Many don't have the time or resources to scour the island. Are there areas near campus that are owned by the college or traditionally rented by students?
So as I'm learning about the Chaminade campus and the school, we have on-campus housing for freshmen. We have on-campus housing for, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. We have co-ed campus living based by either floor or by rooms, meaning every other room. There could be, male, female, male, female type situations. And we do have an off-campus residential facility also that is what Chaminade uses for their students. As far as living off campus for potential players or other students, I've worked closely with a realtor that was very great to me and my 13 years at University of Hawaii. And I've re-engaged her and Steve, wanted to see if she is still in the business. She is, and she's willing to help facilitate some of that for my students that are looking for off-campus housing, homes, apartments, condos.
Well, Chad, I'll tell you something. You hit the nail on the head when you talked about those Japanese players. I went there on tour after both World Series that I played in, and I was so impressed with how their work ethic was incredible. I mean, I always thought I worked a lot because I was on a huge program from the day one I got back home every year, 35 years of running, almost 30 miles a week in different, long distance, medium distance, and sprints and stuff like that, and then working on just sun up to sundown. And I could not believe how good those Japanese players approached the game. They wanted to win. They wanted to be good at the fundamentals. You're a pitching coach, not just a recruiter. When you put a pitcher on the mound, what are you looking for in order to make this guy an offer to come to your school?
Well, first and foremost, strikeability. Can they throw strikes? It goes back to the old simple.
First pitch strike, right.
Well, yeah, we talk about first pitch strikes, and sometimes I think that first pitch strike mentality is overemphasized, and sometimes the pitchers can't necessarily grasp that idea. So to relieve them of that mental stress of throwing a first pitch strike and now squeezing the life out of the baseball and they end up throwing a ball, we want 2 of the first 3 pitches for strikes. And I think that puts us in a good situation in an attack mode as a pitcher. And it puts the hitter still in a defensive count. And we're still ahead in the count, and we still have the ability to attack with our arsenal. So strikeability is of utmost important for me. I would rather take an 86 to 88 guy that throws strikes and has a secondary pitch before a guy that's 90 to 90 through and throws balls. The next thing would be, what is the secondary pitch? Is it a breaking ball? Is it a changeup? I feel like I can teach both, more the change, rather than the breaking ball. I get a little leery of the pitcher that comes in with the curve and the slider, because I think the best pitch is a mediocre slurve. And I would prefer them to master one rather than to have 2 average breaking pitches. Holding runners, crucial. Take so much off of the catchers. They got so much that they've got to do: receive, footwork, catch, throw, block. If we can make that simple and give the catcher time to get a good exchange and a good throw off, I think that's that's part of the pitcher's job to do. And then obviously knowing by talking to the coaches, what's their how do I say, testicular fortitude? Do they have the heart to get a hitter out, or are they going to fold? And that's the hardest thing to figure out, unless you put them in those game type situations where the game's on the line. But that's what I look for. As far as a reliever, doesn't have to be a super blazer that you see in the MLB's guys throwing 99 to 100. If a guy can throw his fastball for a strike and has a really good secondary pitch, I think that's a guy that can fit the mode of a closer. Even more so, that guy needs to come in and have strikeability, because in most cases we're not going to have places to put people on base.
Well, Chad, you're throwing all strikes with me right now. I'll tell you what, how hard is it at your level to find really good catchers? Because I totally believe in everything that you've just said. It's not about the speed, and it's not about throwing strikes all the time either, because I had to teach a guy who only won 12 games, got traded to the Orioles, Steve Stone. He got 12. The most he ever won was 12 games in his career. In the first game, he had men on second and third in the ninth inning. He had a 1-run lead. He had 1 out and 2 strikes on a right-hand hitter. And I called for the curveball in the dirt. And he stepped off the mound like he was totally shocked. Oh, no, I'm not going to throw the ball to the backstop and give him the tying run and put the winning run on third with less than 2 outs. I said, listen, you don't throw good enough to ever throw the ball by me. Throw the ball in the dirt, because I know this guy will swing at it. And it's about reading hitters at the same time. Well, he did that. He threw the curveball in the dirt, and I blocked it. The next guy pops up to left field. He wins his first game. He went on to win 25 games. You know who I'm talking about, and only lost 7 in 1980. Steve Stone, Cy Young Award winner and an all-star pitcher. But he was a guy that I taught, and I take the credit. I really do, because this day I laugh with him when I talk about it, because I taught you how to pitch out of the strike zone when you didn't have to throw a strike. So when you were telling me that, you weren't so worried about strike one all the time. Well, some guys you got to know and be able to read your hitters like it is. And you find catchers at your level that can read the hitters the way you like it, or is that really, really hard for you to get out of it?
Well, I think that's a question that there's some mixed answers to it. So it's funny, because I have a junior college catcher in on a visit this weekend. Okay. He came on his own. He's from a junior college.
Yeah.
And he's somebody that I've targeted since October, when I went out to, fish around for players. Big kid, really can throw, receives okay, can really hit with power. Do I know if he can handle pitchers? I don't know that yet, right? And some of my other younger high school kids, when I look for catchers, I look for receivability. Can they catch? I don't want my guys to be fetching. I want them to be catching. So I look at their receiving skills, and I look for their exchange and throw skills. Do they throw the ball with a good effort behind the throw? Are they accurate toward the right side of the bag? How's their footwork? I can live with the catcher not having to have it all, meaning the 5 tools that you look at. I can take a little bit less of a hitter that's a catcher, or have a little bit less power. That guy has to be really good in leadership skills and the ability to catch and block. He is the backstop. I cannot allow free passes to get to second base, or guys moving from second to third, or guys scoring from third to home. They've got to be really good there.
Chad, I'll tell you something that I totally believe in blocking at the major league level. They don't care about that anymore. They go to one knee in every situation, and so many balls get to the backstop, and so many games in the playoffs and the World Series are won and lost by no more than 1 or 2 runs. And that's the difference in major league defensive catchers anymore. They don't care about that.
Yeah, I agree. And it bothers me to see runners in scoring position in high school baseball, and guys on one knee, they try to pick it rather than block. And I'm like, oh my God, and pass ball. And then they're running back to the backstop, shaking their heads, thinking, they kind of, I'm supposed to block it. It's too late now. That guy scored. right? And if there's another guy on base, that guy advanced to another base. So that's something that we will be probably very old school in the way we teach catching, because that's the right way.
Glad to hear it.
I'm going to ask three questions.
Sure.
One of them is just an observation. I am convinced that the only difference between D1 and D2 is the depth of the pitching. You could take a decent hitting or defensive ball club from a D2 level, stick them in with a great pitching staff, and you've got a top 25 team. I mean, there's some obviously exclusive elite teams, on a good year, Vanderbilt, certainly Tennessee, and some others as well. But that's my observation. Is that your observation as well?
Yeah, I think as I've learned and have had a chance to do some advanced scouting, watching the four Southern California teams come to play HPU, and watching Hilo at one time when they were ranked as high as 9 come in and play. I've been totally impressed with the level of play, especially the skill set of the players that are. They're physical. They display power. I don't see why some of these guys could not be on Division I rosters. I really feel the COVID situation has really backed up players and has really hurt the 2022s and some of the 2021 players, and now the 2023 players, where, because of roster sizes being expanded, and guys getting extra years, it's really pushing guys back, right? I saw an incredible Point Loma pitching staff, especially the right-handers. I might have seen 10 of their pitchers, 3 lefties and 7 right-handers, or 8 in a 4-game series, and none of their right-handed pitchers were under 88 miles an hour. They were all 88 to 91, 92 through strikes, and all had a pretty power slider that they could throw for strikes. I shook my head a couple times when I saw 6 to 7 sliders in a row. I wouldn't even think that is necessary at the Division I level, but that's the way that coach coaches his pitchers, and maybe that pitcher can do that. But I was fairly impressed. Some of the other schools that came by, Biola and Azusa, had a couple power arm guys as well. But the position players too, good defense. I would say the catchers were more the opposite of what I tried to build up my team. And maybe I'm wrong in doing it, as I've expressed that the importance of fielding and the defensive part. I've noticed that those teams were more offensive oriented when they've chosen their catchers. So when the 5 tools, hit, power, run, field, throw, I would go field, throw with the catcher. They're going hit, power. And those guys are typically hitting 3, 4, or 5. And there were quite a bit of pass balls or balls off the glove that allowed, runners to advance. So again, philosophy difference. I believe in pitching and defense and timely hitting. And maybe they were into a little bit more of a power ball, just trying to see who's going to outscore each other. But again, approach. And I'm understanding with some of them, the size of their field. A place like Azusa is very offensive. Mm-hmm. So they play at a little bit smaller park. So they're okay with giving away a little bit from the defense, as long as that catcher can hit for a little bit of power.
Yeah.
But very impressed with the level of play and the skill sets that are demonstrated by the 5 teams that have come through.
Yeah. Let's talk about where the club's going to play. Word out that you have access to the UH facility, and then where? Are there facilities under consideration that have shelf appeal? And I'll say this before you answer. If I played 80% of my home games at UH's stadium, I'm good for a nice high school yard for the rest of them.
Well, no. So we have two more collegiate facilities that are built out for HPU, us, Chaminade, if UH ever had to go play someplace. So the first one is the old Hans L'Orange in Waipahu, near the sugar mill. That is actually under construction. They are redoing they took out the basketball courts to create more parking. They Amen. They demolished the bathrooms and they're going to rebuild a new bathroom facility there, which was well needed. And then I think they're doing a little work to the actual field. I think that's a perfect field if, for HPU, Chaminade, if we didn't have access to anywhere else. It has two grandstands, one on the third base side, one on the first base side that's covered. And it's a great, great field that was once redone by the part owner of the Giants when he was running the Hawaii Winter Baseball League. Put up new fences, re-leveled. That's a well-kept field. So that one should be back available to high schools, to Legion, and to HPU and us if we need at the end of July.
Nice. Oh, at the end of
Central,
July.
Central Oahu Regional Park, where HPU is currently playing their games at Field 4. And why I say Field 4, that is the only field that has lights. And so Field 4 has been kept up really nice by the city and county. And with the biblical rains that we've had, HPU has been able to get in a lot of their games, even though they may have missed out on a few. And I think in one conference series they only played 2, but they were able to get in most of their games, and so that would be another option. Now so about 6 weeks ago, I was invited to go down to a state park, okay, and that is known as Sand Island, which is right near the entrance to the Honolulu Harbor. So different from the city, the state had created Sand Island Park. They have since given it to a softball foundation to run for the last 10 years. So the softball foundation took a fourplex that was made for baseball, Pinto, Mustang, and Bronco, and one high school field. And they have now converted it into a fourplex softball field. And beautiful. They've done it on their own. They've done fundraising. They've got a little bit of the money from the state to do so. So in those plans for the state, there is a baseball field. We don't need to get permits. It's been approved. The state has $3 million for that Sand Island project. We just missed the allocation of potentially what they could use that money for. It's not going to be spent, but that money now just rotates to the next time frame of when they're going to release that money. There is another.
Go on.
Yeah, there's another softball field where I think when I met with the director of the softball foundation on where I think that baseball field should go. Currently, that softball field, right field, doesn't come into play. But if we did a baseball field, the beach and the ocean would come into play. So I said we would have to rotate the field towards first base in order to create more room in right field. Left and center would be great already, but if we rotated it towards first base, we'd have plenty of room to build a baseball field. Now, what does the state do? Do they give us 1 million, 1.5 to regrade? Then we will need to have private, people to come in on the private sector to help out with the field. But an interesting facet to this whole piece is the largest, richest educational institution. It's not Stanford, it's not Harvard, it's not one of those, it's Kamehameha Schools. The Kamehameha Schools owns a lot of the land here on island. They just lost their intermediate / JV baseball field, which was on campus. And that's now going to be converted to a softball field. The school is willing to put in money to find a facility and field for their baseball program. And we have engaged their baseball coach, good friend of mine. He and I do a club team together. He says his school is all in. What do we need? What can my school spend? $2 million, $3 million? They're all in. So we're trying to get Kamehameha Schools to potentially put in the money with the state as the private side and build out that baseball field for high school and for possibly collegiate. And we'll provide more fields for us to play at, since a lot of the private schools currently don't have their own baseball fields to play at.
Last question before Rick takes over.
Sure.
Who's going to be sponsoring the team equipment? Or can players bring their own bats? Will it be Adidas, Nike? Who have you worked to deal with?
Yeah, so our school is tied in with Nike. So we'll be a Nike uniform wearing school. will be Nike shoes, Nike pants, Nike tops. I don't know if I will do the Nike hat. I've heard from my mentor, who went through 7 hats in a Division I college baseball season, and he says the hats are no good.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know, the Nike hats are, high tech, right? Dry fit material, but in the bill itself, right where it meets the U of the forehead, it's empty. There's a missing piece in that bill of the whether it's the plastic or the cardboard or whatever it may be, and that is a technology that they feel that what pushes the sweat to the side. Again, my guy who does Nike, not even the Jordan Nike, says the hats are brutal. So we may do something separate, go with the game, or go with Richardson, with our practice hat and game hats. As far as an equipment deal, I've kind of polled my kids early, and hey, what do you swing? What do you like? And I'm an old school guy, and I like people who have taken care of me. So at University of San Francisco, and what I grew up playing with, and was Easton, and Rawlings bought out Easton, so I was good with trying to do Rawlings uniforms and Rawlings and Easton bats, excuse me. But because we're tied in with BSN, Nike, and Nike, I have to use the uniforms from Nike. So now I'm looking at, what's left out there. Louisville, DeMarini, which are now one company with Wilson gloves, or Marucci, or I could still go with Rawlings gloves. I tell you, the one that seems to be really wanting to work with a program at my level, like a D2, is Marucci. They, I think, would like to gain some traction here in Hawaii, because currently, when I was at UH, Easton was our sponsor for 13 years, and then we ended up with Under Armour for clothing, and now they were with Adidas at UH, and that's the most high-profile program. But I think Marucci would like to get a foot in the door here in this state. So I am close to working. We're going to have to spend some money to buy to get, but they're willing to help. So, whether it's helmets, backpacks, bats, Marucci gloves, Marucci batting gloves. When I met with them in Nashville, they were awesome to discuss a lot of stuff with. So that's what I'm leaning towards. But I would tell you, the people that I polled, my kids, which is the most important, they like DeMarini. They tell me DeMarini is what they like, but they always say that the bats break. So I don't know how good the bats are, but I'm a pitching guy. All I care is if the baseball's got seams and leather, and it's something I can rub down to get it in game shape. That's what I pretty much know. So I don't have to swing a bat.
Coach, it all sounds, to me, it sounds like a lot of fun, but
Oh, yeah.
you're in a constant rebuild all the time. So at the start of it all, what are you expecting? What kind of performance from your players are you expecting right out of the gate?
Right. So, everyone can say, oh, you're a startup and, you're going to take it in shorts or whatever, right? I want to be competitive. In my perfect roster template, I'd like to be, half and half if I can. I currently have more high school players than I do transfers, but that's what I'm working towards now. Is a lot of the transfers have waited their opportunity for D1 options and now have come back to a D2, a place like myself. But I want to be competitive. What's really scary is I will have had a chance to evaluate 2 sets of recruiting classes before really getting a handle on who my starting 9 will be, my 4 starters, who my closer will be. So I really don't know what I'm going to need to recruit in the 2024 high school class or JC class, because I'm still going to be evaluating in the fall and January as to who my best 9. It may not be my 9 best players, but my best 9 players that are going to be the opening 9 starting lineup for February 1st when we open up in our little tournament here on Oahu.
Yeah.
So that's a little, I know I'm probably going to need some pitching. Probably should sign a couple right-handed pitchers, couple of left-handed pitchers. It's just like, you know, a football recruiting. You always try and sign a quarterback is what I hear, right? But in baseball, in building your program, you know, for me, it's going to be pitching, right? So, and how those young kids can make the transition, and how good those junior college kids come in and be the people that I think that they can. And then, you know, whether they stay or not stay, whether they get a chance to move on to play pro baseball or not, you know. So I've also had to think about scholarships, and you know, with the minimal scholarships I have, it wouldn't behoove me to spend it all, you know, at one time. I probably have to hold some for next year, just so that I have some to bring some kids in, right? Because if it's all juniors and all freshmen, everybody technically could return, you know, for their sophomore or senior years, right? So if I spend it all now, I may not have any money to spend.
Yeah.
So it's planning, right? And then how things fall into place, you know? So, but I've got some good mentors that have done this before. You know, John Savage did it at Irvine when, you know, he took over from USC to Irvine, and, you know,
Do you know John pretty well?
John, I consider, is my mentor. He's been so good to me ever since he was an assistant at University of Nevada, Reno. Long story short, so the pitching coach at Nevada, Reno was Dave Lawn. Dave Lawn coached me at Berkeley. John Savage moved into the Reno position as the pitching guy. So when I got the job at University of San Francisco and I had limited funds, recruiting budget, they said, hey, you can stay with us, sleep on the floor. We got a couch, sleep on the couch. Just come and follow us and you'll be in good shape for recruiting. And I did it. I followed them. I owe a lot to them for allowing me to tag along and teach me, you know, what to look for, how to recruit as a young 23-year-old coming out of college. And that's somebody that I will always appreciate and be thankful for, that he one day sat me down and he says, this is what I do. You don't have to do it this way, but this is how I break down per position. And it's been a good template for me for my days at Reno, for my days when I became an assistant and won a national championship at USC. Still remains when he became the head coach at Irvine and did a great job there. And then now obviously his long tenure at UCLA. So Dave Lawn and John Savage. Dave Lawn is the pitching coach at the University of Arizona, who, like I said, I played for and coached with 1 year when my eligibility was exhausted and I had a few classes left at Berkeley. I was an undergraduate assistant at Berkeley. So I owe my career to a lot of them as far as giving me that opportunity.
Chad, what kind of a philosophy do you have now when that ball game gets ready to start and all this education that you've been picking up over your years? Mm-hmm. It sounds like you've learned a lot about it. Maybe not the analytical approach like it is at the major league level, but how do you handle your game? Do you razzle dazzle a little bit, hit and run, bunt guys over, or is it all about, you know, hitting that long ball and uppercut and all that? Tell me about how you feel about it.
Sure. I think the kids that we bring in will dictate that. If we're going to be power guys that we're able to bring in, then we'll try and do that. I think it's more going to be hit and run, not necessarily small ball, but if we have a quick team that we can steal bases, you know, that timely hitting. How can we get on base, draw walks, hit by pitches? How can we get them in a scoring position? I would like to try and operate, you know, for me, because I'm going to still act as a pitching coach, pitching guy, and work with the catchers and the pitchers and call pitches or suggest pitches, as I call it. My assistant that I am waiting for him to finish his high school season has a background in being an offensive guy and a hitting guy. And I'm just going to turn it over, really try to operate like how John does at UCLA, where he doesn't really get involved much in the hitting side, and he just handles all the pitching. And I'll have somebody with me that will be handling the defensive positioning. And then I have former players that I'm going to bring on. One that's going to definitely be a pitching guy, because I've learned, or at least observed and watched when my 13 years with Mike Trapasso, who was a pitching guy coming from Georgia Tech, who couldn't do all of the pitching because of all the other things that he needed to be involved with. And I'm trying to be smart, trying to say that I've learned on the job that that's going to also happen here at Chaminade, that I'm going to need to be involved in team defense, a little bit of team offense, or at least watch what we're doing, and observe what we're doing, in cuts and relays, and how we're going to do, first and thirds, and all that, bunt defenses. And then having my bullpen guy maybe run bullpens and trying to get over there. I don't think I'm be able to Joe Smith to go get another 100 at bats. That was going to make him better. And the other thing too that people oversee or a little oversight about summer ball at a D2 program. I want my